Among the ancient teachings of Jesus is his idea of awareness, and a way of recovering our wholeness, to become aware. And what is it that we want to become aware of that will help us the most? Well, it's these intrusive, haunting thoughts that we have. These thoughts that we can't seem to control. They come at inopportune times. They stay longer than we want them to stay. And no matter how much we try, we just can't get rid of them. It's fear, anxiety, craving for something we don't want to do. Whatever it is that just stays with you. It just gets in your mind. It won't go away. It's just kind of crazy, right? So, what we know from St. Paul, who is a follower of Jesus and reports to have seen Jesus, and does a whole lot of teaching in the New Testament about Jesus' teachings, he says that we can be transformed by the renewing of our mind. So what is this renewing the mind? How does one do that? How do we renew it? Does that mean renew it back to some place that is less intrusive? Some place where maybe we have more control over it, or maybe it's a little more peaceful than the mind we're presently dealing with. Paul says something like this. He says, think on these things. Anything that's honest, noble, true, lovely, trustworthy, those kind of things. Think on those things. And it's a worthwhile antidote for getting to this place we want to get with our mind, is to begin to put our minds upon things that are the things we want, the peaceful things. You know, if you're always around, things that just seem to add to the anxiety and add to the things you don't want in your mind, then obviously you're continuing to propagate that same thing. So that's a good thing. So back to renewing our mind, because we want to be transformed, we want to be changed. So my friend Reed Smith, as you know, tells us that we cannot control our mind, and he's right. We can't control our thoughts. We can't get control of them. I mean, try it. I mean, if you think you can control your mind, then press the off button right now. Right. What you're probably thinking of right now is an off button, which is just more thinking. It doesn't shut off. It just keeps going. The flow of thought just keeps flowing. So we have to do something differently with it. So St. Paul goes on to teach a little bit more in depth about this. He tells us that we kind of have this battle, but the battle that we have, we don't battle with flesh and blood. The weapons that we use to go about this battle are not spears and swords and bombs and guns. Even Jesus himself teaches non-resistance. He says, don't resist evil. Someone slaps you on one cheek, turn to him the other. Someone asks you to go a mile, go 2 miles. Someone steals your coat, give him your shirt. That whole thing. So Paul's not following the teachings of Jesus by reversing that and saying, oh yeah, you got to really struggle and you got to really fight to be able to win this battle. No. So how do we do this? Because he says our weapons are not carnal, but they're mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, which build up in our minds these thoughts, these intrusive patterns that just keep going over and over and over in our mind. And he tells us, he says, take every thought captive. And that's given a lot of people, including myself, a picture of trying to, fight and captivate a thought and then control it and change it into something else. And I've never had much success with that. My friend Reed Smith again says that we can decide that we're going to think in a certain way. So we decide, okay, I'm going to think about this. So you do, and you think about that a little while, and maybe you can manipulate your thoughts for just a little while, but we can't sustain it. It's like holding up, a 5-pound weight I can hold it up for a while, but after a few hours, it's more than 5 pounds to me. It gets heavier and heavier and heavier. So how do we take a thought captive? Well, let's think about this. Let's just act like the thought is a thief. And the thief is coming in to steal our stuff. So we could distract ourselves from the thief, distract ourselves from the thought, think something else, think about something else and forget that the thief is there. But the thief will just keep coming back. Maybe for a moment you forget the thief is there, so you don't know you're being robbed. And if you don't know you're being robbed, then maybe you don't have the pain of being robbed, but you're being robbed, okay? You could also lock the thief in a room. You could captivate the thief, put him in another room, lock the door, and keep him in there. But an ancient saying says this: he who imprisons someone must be imprisoned himself. So in order to hold the thief captive, you basically got to hold yourself captive. And that's the kind of path I've been on before, where I've tried to fight a particular thought and would try to counter that thought with something else. And I would think, oh, this is a bad thought. I shouldn't be thinking this. I need to put this out of my mind. I need to think a different way and all this kind of stuff. And so I've got that thought and I've got it captive. But really, it's got me, just in a different way. I'm still having to push it back. I'm still having to stay after it every day, and it wears you down. The thing about taking a thought captive is that this catching the thief thing, here's the problem. It's an inside job. You're not trying to catch a thief that's coming from the outside. You're trying to catch a thief that's already on the inside. Remember, it's your mind that is thinking these thoughts. It's kind of like going to the sheriff and saying, "Hey, sheriff, I got a thief that I need you to catch." But the thief is the sheriff. It's impossible. It becomes a cycle. You can't do it. So how do we catch it? Well, you ever heard of a neighborhood watch? It's these neighbors who maybe they have a little bit of crime in their area, so they get neighbors at different points of the day, different hours in the day, to watch the neighborhood, to watch the houses. And it reduces the crime. Why? Because thieves don't like to be watched. They go somewhere else. We have things now called surveillance cameras that are everywhere, right? And thieves don't like those cameras. So what we need is a watcher. We need an observer. And we got one of those. Paul says, "Who can know the mind of man except the spirit of man?" Solomon says in Proverbs, the spirit of man is the lamp of the Lord, and it searches all the other parts. It's the searcher. It's the observer. And Jesus says, the eye, not these two balls in our head, or not even one of them. He's talking about something else. The eye is the lamp of the body. It is the light. It's the watcher. We all have a spirit inside of us. Really, we are that spirit. That is us, looking and watching. And when we catch a thought, we see it for what it is. All we have to do is keep looking without identifying with the thought. Just looking at the thought, observing the thought, staying separate from the thought. I know it's a practice. It's something we have to practice. But what Paul says is that if we were to walk or live like this, we would never fulfill the lust of the flesh. Why? Because the body has to have the mind to act. And if the mind is renewed and transformed by the Spirit, then the body will only follow that mind. So look, it can be done. If we begin to look at the thoughts that we're having, watch them, observe them, without identifying with them. If you identify with the thought, you either become the thief or the sheriff. And both these people are the same. So we have to find a place behind the thought, behind the process, and be aware that this process is going on right now. Right now I'm having these thoughts. Right now these thoughts are producing these emotions. This is what's happening to me right now. Keep that awareness. Stay back from it. Meditation can help with this a great deal. This can be done. And when it is, what Jesus teaches is that through this non-resistance, through this watching, being spirit, being the watcher, being the awareness, we can have a transformed life. And it is the mind that is the issue. We are transformed by renewing our mind. Hi all. I hope you're enjoying the videos. If you are, check us out. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Like our videos, share them out with other people. If they're a blessing to you, bless someone else with them. If you'd like more information about our program, Recover Wholeness, email us at recoverwholeness@gmail.com.